This podcast is brought to you by Adelaide. Media verification and measurement are undergoing major disruption. Legacy players are pivoting to performance advertising, AI is reshaping brand safety, and attention is replacing viewability. Adelaide is leading this shift with AU, a new way to assess media quality that scores placements based on their potential to drive attention and outcomes before your ads run. Think of it like a credit score for media. Finally, a clear view of quality before you buy. Take the guesswork out of your investment strategy and try Adelaide AU on your next campaign. This podcast is brought to you by AudioHook, the leading independent audio DSP. AudioHook has direct publisher integrations into all major podcast and streaming radio platforms, providing 40% more inventory than what could be accessed in omnichannel DSPs. What's more, AudioBook has full transcripts on more than 90% of all podcast inventory, enabling advanced contextual targeting and brand suitability. AudioHook is so confident that in addition to CPM buys, they offer the industry's only pay-for-performance option where brands can scale audio and podcasting with peace of mind knowing they are only paying for outcomes. Visit audiohook.com to learn more. That's audiohook.com.
Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
Welcome to the Marketecture Podcast. This is Ari Paparo. We're broadcasting from Cannes. All week, we're going to be publishing short interviews with interesting people here at Cannes. We hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back next week with a Cannes wrap-up and our normal format. Welcome to the Marketecture Podcast. I'm recording live from Cannes this week, and today I have Oleg Korenfeld, who is the CTO of CMI Media Group and Compass. Oleg is a longtime friend of mine. He's been around the ad tech world forever in the agency side with former DoubleClick, knows a lot of things. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Very happy to be here. Thank you, Ari.
So Oleg and I ran into each other maybe a month ago, and I was having my usual conversation that listeners of this podcast have probably heard a million times, where I was asking, like, AI, are people really using it? What's happening? And he had a kind of interesting tale of experience that he had in an agency. And I said, would you like to, tell my audience about it? And he said he would. So we're going to hear a tale of complexity and learning and some challenges in real life use cases of AI in an agency. So Oleg, with that, give us the background about what is this agency? Maybe people don't know it very well, what you were trying to accomplish and how you went about it.
Sure. So CMI Media Group is a healthcare media agency. We're a full service agency, planning and buying. We're part of WPP. And last year we were on this mission. We were looking to find a way to automate a lot of our processes. And one of the processes that we focused on was media planning. Media planning is this kind of holy grail of opportunities for automation, specifically on the agency side of things. And when we thought about all the data sets that we've had that our planners use or do not use when they build plans, we figured, you know what, this is a great place to figure something out. We have 4 or 5 different data sets, from campaign performance to analysis to clients data, that we tend to use when we plan media. First and foremost, we had to normalize all those data sets, because to write any kind of algorithms to be able to apply to the answers, the data had to be normalized in one environment. So we've done that. It took a lot of time. But then the question came up, as often does, where to apply generative AI? Does it make sense? What would it mean to create some kind of a prompt chat box where, in theory, hundreds of planners could start asking questions? And we've tried that because, again, generative AI was on everybody's lips. Everybody was trying to figure out, and we still are, trying to figure out where it's applicable. And what we've learned fairly quickly is that just because you can do something doesn't mean it will always work. To me, the biggest surprise was that in generative AI, we know it's great at text. It's great at pictures, right? It can write you essays. It can create new imagery that never existed before. But when it comes to crunching a lot of different data sets, numbers-based data sets, it was not that accurate in returning consistent results. So we could ask the prompt the same question multiple different ways or the same ways. It would come back sometimes with different answers. So from the standpoint of us giving this power into the hands of hundreds of planners, that became an issue.
So are we talking about hallucinations here? And when I would think some media planning questions have, correct answers. Like, what's the average CPM we paid on Yahoo last year? That has a real answer, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes and no. And what I mean by that is there's multiple questions that are being asked at the same time, right? Sometimes it could be, hey, what's the average CPM for this supplier? What are the right suppliers? What are the right data providers that should have been used? What is the client's data? And when you start to organize all those data sets and you expect certain types of answers and you don't get them, then it becomes an issue.
So let's step back 1 second. What were your goals for the project? Did you think you were going to offer a tool that might optionally be used by the media planners, or were you looking to fully automate some of their work, or somewhere in between?
I would say somewhere in between. We were building an assistant, media planning assistant, basically for a planner to have all the opportunities in place to evaluate all the data sets that often is really hard to do in the time constraints that they have, to go through all those data sets to come up with the most optimal plan and come up with a certain set of recommendations. So we needed to provide an element of that to be done through automation, just to sift through all those data sets, not to leave anything to the side of it. So purely from a standpoint of automating it, we were able to achieve it. So our engine works and it can predict the right suppliers very accurately. But once we put any kind of a chat box on top of it, say like, hey, why don't you, planner, ask the right question? We cannot guarantee that the answer will always be correct, at least not yet.
All right. So the data was organized. The LLM or the generative AI knew what it was doing to some extent. It had somewhat predictable results, but the humans were the problem.
That's an interesting way you phrase that question, Ari. I don't think the humans are the problem. I actually think the generative AI is the problem here. And again, I think it's a short-term situation. I really think it will be resolved over time with enough data flowing through it, with enough questions asked. But when you're asking me to put something this powerful in the hands of hundreds of planners who are responsible for so much media investment, if I cannot be 1,000% sure the results will be accurate as part of the recommendation, that becomes a question.
All right. So tell me how the rollout worked. Did you catch this in beta and you started seeing some scary stuff? Like, take me through the timeline.
Yes, it was never used live. So obviously we caught it in design and development. We, like I said, first had to normalize all the data set. We started to train the models to come back with answers. And it got to a point where we had to pre-write the questions and keep asking the model the same questions over and over to see if it's going to come back with the same exact results. And sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't, without changing much, right? So at that stage, we've realized, hey, it's not worth it. Sometimes you kind of look at it, go like, just because we can do it, is it worth what we're trying to solve for? If the goal of this whole project was to automate part of the media planning process, to help a planner sift through so much data that they often don't have time to do, that may not be the right path to it. So again, going back to like, do we need to use specifically generative AI or just some kind of a predictive, which exactly we ended up doing, a predictive AI piece that automatically produces the results now in a dashboard rather than being prompted?
Okay, yeah. Take me through how you re-architected based on this learning. So was it just removal of prompts and just automating the kind of the data flow, or was there more to it than that?
So yeah, so instead of having the prompt screen as part of our RFP process in the stage where we're selecting suppliers, it would be, hey, click this AI button here for recommendation of suppliers based on the data that you've provided. And the output would be a dashboard. We would say based on these 5 or 4 data sets, whichever was obviously needed for that plan, here's how the suppliers were ranked. And we obviously, as part of the normalization process, we've ranked the entire data set, and the output would be that automated.
Okay, so, and I assume this has worked. It's in production. Tell me what the reaction's been and how usage has been and anything else you can share.
So it's live. And we're right now in planning season, so this is perfect. This is just the right time to, hey, you're going through the next season, then plan everything. Here's another assistant for a planner to do their jobs. The rollout actually has little to do with the technology because we've gone through training. We've trained a couple of hundred planners in our company. We're, a fairly big agency. Where the holdups are right now is actually approvals, because when it comes to AI, we need client approvals for any kind of applications of AI on their business. There's security issues. We're a healthcare agency. The data that we work with obviously is sensitive. So there's a lot of actual legal pieces that we need to go through before we can allow our planners to get access to those solutions. So we have the feature built. It's in our operating system. It's part of our RFP process, but some planners have it turned on, some don't, depending on where we are with legal.
That seems crazy because ultimately the client's going to approve the plan anyway. So why does the client care to approve what goes into the plan that they're going to approve anyway? Oleg is hesitant to answer that question.
Because I'm not a lawyer, right? My job is my job is to build the most secure possible platform. And then because the vertical we're in, and because every one of our clients have their own legal teams, and because they have different policies around AI, we need to go through those steps to make sure everybody understands exactly what is happening, why, and how it's different from what was happening before. That's why actually it's very important. And I think actually removing the generative AI piece right now at least makes things easier because we're not creating anything new. With generative AI, right? There's opportunity to create brand new data set that doesn't exist before. Now we're normalizing a data set. We're just automating a manual process using AI to crunch through all the data sets. So I'm hoping actually because of that, it will make things easier with the legal teams.
What are the next surface areas that you see as optimal for using AI to reduce costs, improve quality, et cetera?
Insights. Insights is huge. I think a lot of time and effort and hours that are spent to generate performance reports and outcomes and make sense of them and package them up in a way that could be presented to a marketer. I think that's another great place that needs to be addressed. And we actually are addressing that as a part of this whole automation initiative. And if you ask me directly, which one is will move the needle, I think that's the big one.
So I've heard, as it relates to media planning and AI, I've heard two different points of view this week at Cannes. Some people think it's going to cause consolidation because the AI will not be influenced by, salespeople, and basically media will just go to whatever works the best. And then someone else is saying, well, AI shouldn't care about, spending money on more sites because it's all automated. So it'll reduce the cost of spreading your money in more places, and it will be anti-consolidation on the media side. Any thoughts on that?
I think it depends on the history of the data you're working with, because from the standpoint of an agency, our job, again, is to bring these new opportunities. We need to constantly find our audiences in different environments to deliver our messages. AI is built on historical data sets. How do we introduce new suppliers? Let's say today in Cannes, I met with some great new company that I never heard of before, and I want to apply it somewhere to my business. My AI will not be able to recommend it. So I need to ingest this HI, human intelligence piece to it to say, strategically speaking, this is a great opportunity. And now this new supplier becomes part of the learning curve.
Okay, so for anyone listening who's more on the product engineering side, what advice do you have about when taking on a big new AI project? What have you learned?
The analogy I've been trying to use, and I know how great it is finding the right hammer for the right nail. And because AI is not one monolithic thing, it's a bunch of different technologies built to address often very specific things. Understanding what you're trying to solve for and what your outcomes are, actually the manual work up front to design exactly what you want it to do, and don't just trust the system to do it, is critical. In programmatic, in our world, for decades, we spent years trying to get accuracy in data. So right now, we shouldn't just rush into AI without validation of what is this data that we're using. Is it valuable? So upfront manual work, I would say, actually is so valuable to get the automation right.
All right. Well, Oleg Korenfeld, thanks for sharing your story. It's really interesting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for subscribing to Marketecture. New interviews are added every week at marketecture.tv and your favorite podcasting app.